Tonight, more dangerous winds expected to sweep through Los Angeles as wildfires continue to burn.
24 people have been killed, 24 more are still missing, but firefighters say they are making some progress. The worry is that gale-force gusts could add more fuel to what have already become the deadliest and most destructive fires in California's history.
They said 70-mile-an-hour winds. It's going to be very difficult to contain that fire.
As rental costs skyrocket, landlords are accused of trying to profit from misery and threatened with heavy fines.
Also coming up, could we be close to a ceasefire in Gaza? Joe Biden says the deal is on the brink as he tries to cement his foreign policy legacy. 1 week till he departs the White House and Donald Trump moves back in. We'll assess the US president's successes and failures. A sprawling tent city and millions of pilgrims will report from the world's biggest religious festival in northern India. Plus, bravery and misogyny in an ancient sport. I'll speak to the directors who convinced the only female bull jumper in France to go on camera. It's all coming up on The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Good evening. We begin the programme where we ended last week with the destructive wildfires still burning in LA. Authorities warned against that dangerous winds could quicken their spread and had a message for residents. Do not let down your guard. And as ever, with natural disasters in the United States, the blame game is already underway. California Governor Gavin Newsom has accused the president-elect of taking cheap political shots. We'll discuss Donald Trump's approach away from home later in the programme. That says the man he's replacing tries to cement his legacy. But first, let's cross to Jane Secker, who is in LA for us. And Jane, I mean, this is a community reeling from this devastation. The death toll is going up. And they're also being told, do not put your guard down.
Absolutely, Yalda. We heard in this press conference this morning from the authorities the number of dead, but also the number of missing as well. They know that they have recovered 1 or 2 bodies inside the burnt-out properties, but at the moment the authorities are using cadaver dogs to go into these areas to try to search, to try to recover people, residents, their neighbours who may have been trying to save their properties but were unable to very sadly get out. And this is all going on as the winds are predicted to increase over the next 48 hours. They're not going to be quite as bad as they were last week, but they are certainly going to be pretty ferocious. And Californians have been warned to effectively try to batten down the hatches to try to prevent what happened last week happening again. Let me just show you a little bit of where I am. I'm on Sunset Boulevard and you can see burnt out cars behind me. Now this scene may stick in people's memories because this is the place where on the night of the fire on Tuesday night they brought in bulldozers, the fire chiefs, because they couldn't get the emergency services up and down this hill. So many people had driven down here to try to escape from the Pacific Palisades behind us, but they couldn't get out, so people just abandoned their cars, and these cars were blocking the road, so they brought in a bulldozer which cleared this whole area. And if you look at some of the stuff on the ground, Yalda, you can see what look like rivulets of metal that have hardened again. This is aluminium. Now, the melting point of aluminium is 1,220 degrees Fahrenheit, which gives you an idea of the ferocity of the blaze here. It is really, really worrying for Californians. We talked to one resident just a short time ago, and she was explaining to us how she has got her boot full. She's put all her treasured possessions in her boot to try to be ready to go when she has to. The road next to her has been evacuated. She hasn't been evacuated yet, but she is on standby. Well, we can bring you a report now from my colleague Martha Kellner, who's looking at the preparations Californians are making for the next day.
It's the loneliest of missions, but one so many here are doing.
It is hard to see this. Mm-hmm. I mean,
Fred is a car mechanic. He left home with only his passport last Tuesday afternoon, returning 6 days later to this.
I put a special fireplace in there, you know, so that was the living room, that was the...
How old are you, Fred?
I'm 80.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
I haven't seen something this bad, no. I mean, I was born in Germany and I saw buildings where they were destroyed, but nothing like this.
In the post-war era?
Yeah.
The blue skies here are incongruous with the wreckage on the ground. But this ravaged city isn't in the clear. Dangerous winds are forecast overnight and a warning issued for potential explosive fire growth.
We are right back into a red flag condition. So those conditions are expected to go all the way through until Wednesday around 6 o'clock at night. We want people to know that just because they're not seeing smoke and fire, that when these winds pick up, we could have 70-mile-an-hour gusts still. So that could start right back up.
Firefighters here are on guard for hotspots in the rubble. An investigation is ongoing into what caused the blazes.
We have created a Los Angeles Regional Wildlife Investigative Task Force. And while their work is still in the early stages, we're committed to identifying the cause and origin of these fires. And we're also committed to holding anyone who's responsible for these fires accountable.
This fire started in the mountains above Pacific Palisades, at the head of a hiking trail popular with teenagers, walkers and tourists.
Police are keeping vigil round the clock here. This is where authorities believe this fire that devastated so many lives began. This now a potential active crime scene.
Arson hasn't been ruled out. Privately, officials are saying they believe this disaster was human-made. A resident providing me with this picture of a fire in the exact same area on New Year's Eve. Some believe it could have been reignited by ferocious winds. And amid the misery, a miracle of sorts. This man lost his house, but is reunited with his dog who survived. A brief period of respite tackling these fires is coming to an end. This community braced once more for a danger which is so devastatingly clear.
Well, as you've been hearing there, investigators are only just beginning to hunt for the cause of the Palisades fire, which was the biggest and most difficult to contain so far. They are not ruling out a connection to a fire from New Year's Eve in a similar location, as Martha was explaining, believed to have been sparked by fireworks. While contained by the officials, the embers could have reignited days later in the harsh Californian winds. Authorities pointed to the first sign of smoke along the Temascal Ridge on the 7th of January. From there, the fire grew quickly, doubling in size in 24 hours and continuing to spread uncontrollably over the course of the week. The latest data this afternoon now shows the Palisades fire with a perimeter of more than 37 miles. That's half the land size of Washington, D.C. And it's one of 3 major wildfires still tearing through Los Angeles. Damages now are up to £250 billion. California's fire departments say they've contained 95% of the fires in Hearst, 33% up in the northeast of Eaton, but only 14% of the first Palisades fire. Well, let's take you now to Martha Kellner, who is in Pacific Palisades. And Martha, the authorities in this press conference this morning reinforcing the fact that really strong winds are predicted over the next 24 hours.
Yeah, I think their prevailing message to people here, Jane, is that this community is not out of the woods yet. The National Weather Service issuing this warning for potential explosive fire growth because of the winds that are expected overnight and into Wednesday evening. Firefighters here have benefited over the weekend from this lull in the winds. They've been able to have their aerial firefighting operation fully fledged over the weekend. They've had crews out all over the place across the Pacific Palisades and across Altadena, where the Eaton fire was raging. And the good news is that they've stopped any significant fire growth and the levels of containment of these fires have gone up significantly. But really, this is a race against time now, because these winds are expected to pick up into the evening hours tonight, and they're not expected to be quite as ferocious as the winds that we saw last Tuesday evening, hurricane force winds, which really fueled this disaster. But they are expecting potential gusts up to 70 miles per hour. So firefighters taking this very seriously and warning residents here that they're not out of the woods yet.
And tell us, Martha, about the kind of tales that people have been telling you, what they've gone through.
Okay, just tell me when you go. Don't talk to me anymore.
You saw it in our report there, Jane, that elderly gentleman, Fred, who just returned to his home. He actually had to go around all sorts of police blockades to try and get in, and that's because residents are being advised at the moment not to return to their homes here. There was a scheme towards the end of last week where they could go and sign up their name on a sheet and receive a police escort to return to their homes. That has now been stopped because police now say there's a dangerous level of debris in this area. There are also concerns about gas leaks. So as we're driving around here today, I'm seeing lots of gas workers checking the mains here, trying to make sure it is safe. Residents being advised that they may be able to return to their homes on Thursday, but people really are desperate to get back now. Many people have medication, belongings, clothes, things that are really dearly important to them that they want to try and retrieve from the wreckage. And for those whose homes are still standing, they want to get back in to see the scale of the damage.
Martha, thanks so much. While we've been here filming, we're delighted to say that the actor Steve Guttenberg has just passed by. Steve, you're a local resident. Tell us a little bit about how this has affected you.
This is tough on everybody. It's really hard. It's getting better because the fire's out in this area, but it's hard. You know, we have thousands of people without their homes, and mentally it's very, very difficult. And we have so many pets that are missing, and it's rough. It's rough on everybody. There's no water up here. There's no gas up here. It's going to take so long to rebuild. You know, you see all these cars, all the homes that are leveled. It's really rough.
Your building, your home, did it survive?
My house survived. We're very lucky. We had firefighters all around, and they did an amazing job. LA City Fire and all the fire departments from all over the states came here. But so many homes are lost. So many of my friends have lost their homes. It's very, very, very difficult. You know, when you lose, you know, your favorite chair to watch TV in, and your photographs from your family and all the mementos of your life.
It is. It's undescribable, really, to imagine what people have gone through. They're now all displaced. The wind's picking up again. How fearful are you about the next 24, 48 hours?
I'm very confident that we're going to be okay, but the wind is going to pick up, and it's going to be a harsh wind tonight, so we have to be very vigilant. We have to put out any spot fires. We see any kind of railroad ties that are on fire. We have to put dirt on them. We have to... there's no water up here, so all the firemen and women have to use the trucks that fill them up. They only get about 500 gallons in a truck, but we have swimming pools here. We can empty the swimming pools. And then we have shovels and dirt.
Do you think this area will recover? I mean, it's obviously a beautiful place to live. People have lived here for many years. It seems like the kind of place people don't leave when they come.
Yeah, it will recover. We're very resilient, but it's going to take many, many years. I mean, just to clean this up, it'll take a year to clean things up, and then start building and getting permits. But you know.
There's community goodwill to get this done, isn't there?
Yeah, just like every town. You know, human beings are terrific creatures. You know, we try, we help each other, we love each other. The normal way of human beings are to be happy, so everybody wants to be happy and build another life, so that's what you do. When a tragedy occurs, you weather it, and then you grieve it, and then you start again. But it's going to take a while. But we have to do it because, you know, that's what we human beings do. We we get up, we're resilient, we get knocked down, we stand up again.
California way. Steve, I know you've got a tight schedule. Thank you very much for talking to us.
Anne.
Really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, Steve was saying he was lucky enough to keep his property, but thousands of people now have no place to live. And while celebrities and the more well-off can afford to stay in hotels, many ordinary people are now being priced out of the rental market. Let's bring in Renee Christian-Moyer from the LA Tenants Union. Renee, very good to talk to you today. Just tell us about the kind of situation that you're finding tenants are now in because of this fire.
Well, what we're seeing is a lot of rent gouging across LA County, not just in the directly impacted areas in the places like the Palisades and or Altadena here in Northeast LA, near where I live. What we're actually seeing is a lot of landlords are taking advantage of the situation to increase rents by 30%, 40% and above. We should be very clear that that price gouging is already illegal, given that we are under a state of emergency. That has not prevented them from doing that.
Is there a real difference between the area where we're broadcasting from tonight, the Palisades, and up at Altadena, in terms of the kind of residents, the kind of quality of accommodation and where they're getting to go?
Absolutely. So Altadena itself, we should be kind of set the scene here a little bit, is a historically Black and brown community. A lot of Black families have had their homes destroyed. In fact, the initial names that we've seen of a lot of the folks who died in the fire in Altadena specifically are of Black residents. We're talking about a lot of working class folks, a lot of middle class folks who are being impacted by this. A lot of my own friends have been struggling to find housing in this moment because there is such a great demand from other evacuees, other folks who are impacted by the fires themselves, who lost their homes. And what we're seeing is that when they are trying to apply for housing, they are seeing that there is an enormous amount of price gouging that they can afford. There are folks, obviously, in different parts of LA, especially in West LA, that are much wealthier, that are able to pay for even up to a year's worth of a lease so that they can secure that housing. That is not the case in places like the northeast of LA. And so that is just going to exacerbate an already difficult housing crisis in this city.
We heard from the DA a little earlier. I was down in that press conference and he said if you want to rip off people who need help, you will be arrested, prosecuted, and we will seek maximum punishment for you. Do you think it's going to deter those landlords who are trying to make a quick buck here?
In our experience in the tenants union, we understand that tenants are always the first and foremost, the first line of defense in their own struggles. It is tenants who are the best placed to be able to defend their interests and to be able to enforce the law. There are things, though, that city, county, and I'd even say federal officials could do to actually ensure that these kind of abuses don't occur. We know that LA County and LA City, as well as the other cities in the county, have powers that they can enact right now to enact a rent freeze. They can enact an eviction moratorium. There is a battery of solutions that they can enact. We've already had experience being able to do this in the past during the COVID-19 pandemic. Right now, given the enormous shock that we just experienced in the county and with the number of people who are looking for homes, it is time to bring those protections and more to the table. We already, again, had a pre-existing housing and homelessness crisis in LA. This is just going to make it far, far worse.
OK, Renee Christian-Moyer from the Tenants Association here in LA. Really good to talk to you. Thank you for joining us. Well, listening to that was Jason Oppenheim. Now, he's a real estate agent who also appears on the reality TV programme Selling Sunset. Jason, great to talk to you this evening. Tell us, though, about what you've been hearing. You're maybe dealing with a different kind of tenant to the ones that Renee is helping, people with a bit more money to spend. But what are you hearing from landlords?
Well, he made some really salient and excellent points, because there is price gouging going on, and we're seeing it across the spectrum. And I appreciate you guys bringing attention to it, because, we're getting listen, I mean, there's a lot of excellent landlords out there and homeowners, and I'm dealing with them every day saying, listen, I'm not using my house as much as I could be. I want to put it on the market, make sure that it's a fair and reasonable rent. But we're also, since we offered our services for free to those that have been affected, we've received dozens and dozens of calls, and there's just not enough available right now. And many landlords are taking advantage of the situation. We've had numerous situations where we've had tenants have to offer significantly more than they should, significantly over market. And there's a very distinct penal code 396 that is enforced during an emergency. The governor made it clear that we're in an emergency for the next year. And landlords better recognize that if they accept or charge, significantly more than market, and when I say market, I mean pre-disaster market prices, they're going to be getting a letter from an attorney, and they should be. Nobody should be profiting in these times. If anything, we should be giving. So I appreciate you getting some attention to this.
What do you think it's going to do to the future of the real estate industry around here in LA? Do you think people after this are going to feel a bit more nervous about living in these really beautiful rural hills around LA, around Hollywood, that it might make this area less desirable?
I don't think so at all. LA is unique in many ways, and there's no question that we're going to rebuild, and probably rebuild back stronger than we were before. And if you look at, historically, that just hasn't been the response from Americans when it comes to disaster. They rebuild, and they rebuild in those same communities. And honestly, our response is going to be, we're going to be better prepared in the future. We're going to have better fire suppressant. We're going to have better AI drone technology. Honestly, I think that, over the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to do many things to become more prepared. But right now, we do need to encourage development. And, it's difficult because these people lost their homes. They could be in their 60s, 70s, 80s. Even if they're in their 20s and 30s, they're not contractors. It's a dentist or a nurse. They're not really in a position to spend 3 years of their life managing a build project. So, we are going to rely on developers to have to come in. And we just need to protect those people who are potentially selling their land to make sure that they're getting fair prices. Right now, to make sure that they're getting fair rental prices.
Yeah, well, here's hoping for those poor people who have been left without homes that there is perhaps some kind of happy ending ahead. Jason Oppenheimer, really good to talk to you today. Thank you for joining us. Now, imagine battling a wildfire for 3 straight days without rest. That's what one California firefighter told me he and his colleagues faced, and added that while water and other resources were short, he doubts if having more would have really made a difference. Have a look.
On ladder going up.
When Fountain Valley Fire Crew got the call to head to Los Angeles last Tuesday, they had no idea what lay ahead.
Tool coming down.
This company and the 4 other companies we're with and our leadership fought fire for 72 straight hours without stopping. So that was a little intense, but the conditions were intense. There was a lot of wind, there was a lot of fire, a lot of heat, and there weren't enough resources to manage it, so we weren't going to leave.
Holy cow!
And this is what they had to contend with, their own terrifying footage shared with us.
I myself and most of us didn't know how big this fire was or how bad. We kind of just thought it was bad where we were. And it wasn't really until that Thursday when we were able to leave and start moving down Sunset, then down PCH, when we noticed how much devastation had happened. So we didn't get to watch any news.
As to the row about failing water supplies, Brent is philosophical.
Water wasn't the problem for us in a lot of places. It was just being overrun by such huge winds with so much fire and so much heat. But there was definitely times when we could have used more water, but really more resources, more equipment, I don't know that it would have really helped.
But as the dangerous Santa Ana winds whip up again, focus has turned to prevention from the ground as well as the air.
What's happening here is going to be crucial in the coming hours as the winds pick up. They have to ensure that this ground is absolutely free of fire in case the wind picks up any embers and carries them back out into the bush.
So far, we found several little hot spots, of which we are basically turning the dirt into mud, to making sure that it can't reignite.
The weather over the next 48 hours will be crucial. These exhausted crews are doing all they can now to get ahead of these blazes while they still have a chance.
And it's just that preparedness, Yalda, that they're really trying to make the most of here. The LA District Supervisor said at that press conference a little earlier today, these winds are significant, they are serious, and you need to follow evacuation orders. So they hope that the people of Los Angeles, if they are told to evacuate areas tonight or tomorrow, will heed the authorities' warnings.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, the next 48 hours crucial. Jane, thank you so much for all your reporting from out there. We are watching The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Still to come on the programme, a series of crises and tests. Joe Biden sums up his foreign policy legacy a week before he leaves the Oval Office.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason.
President for a second time.
That reason being to save our country, he said.
A remarkable moment, isn't it?
Another chance, another 4 years. The question is, what does he do with those 4 years?
Watch the inauguration of Donald Trump as he becomes president for the second time.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
The full story, first on Sky News.
Welcome to The World.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week, we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason.
President for a second time.
That reason being to save our country, he said.
A remarkable moment, isn't it?
Another chance, another 4 years. The question is, what does he do with those 4 years?
Watch the inauguration of Donald Trump as he becomes president for the second time.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
The full story, first on Sky News.
I'm Stuart Ramsey, and I'm Sky's chief correspondent. Free wherever you get your news.
I'm Mark Stone, and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C. Sky News, get the full story first.
I'm Katie Spencer, and I'm Sky News' arts and entertainment correspondent.
I'm Lisa Dowd, and I'm one of Sky's Midlands correspondents. The reason I do this job is because you never know where it's going to lead.
I'm Alex Crawford, and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul. We aim to be the best and the most trusted place for news.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Weeknights on Sky News.
This is your chance. Tell people.
Welcome to the Politics Hub.
Our police force has apologised.
If you want to find out about Grimsby, you come to the docks.
I'm live in Jerusalem. Are you not concerned that that could lead to all-out war?
Hello there, good evening. There are fears of an upsurge in violence. What's at stake here?
You are watching the press preview, a first look at the front pages as they arrive.
I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C. Donald Trump, it would appear, is about to learn his fate. There's no doubting the strength of this hurricane as it roars through. Sky News, get the full story first. Do you fear a fourth indictment?
He's from Sky News. He's from Sky News. He's entitled to ask me questions.
Welcome back. It's now 1 week until the inauguration of Donald Trump. And if the man he's replacing is to be believed, America is more stable, its adversaries are weaker, and its alliances are stronger than they have been in decades. The outgoing US president described his 4 years in office as a series of crises and tests. He spoke about ending the war in Afghanistan and said for the first time since it began after 9/11, a US president won't inherit that conflict. Syria, Iran and Russia were all name-checked, and China too. And on the hopes of a ceasefire in Gaza, Mr. Biden said a deal was on the brink. Just have a listen.
On the war between Israel and Hamas, we're on the brink of a proposal that I laid out in detail months ago, finally coming to fruition. The deal we have structured would free the hostages, halt the fighting, provide security to Israel, and allow us to significantly surge humanitarian assistance to the Palestinians who've suffered terribly in this war.
Joe Biden speaking a little earlier. Let's go straight to our Mark Stone, who joins us live. Mark, Joe Biden laying out his foreign policy legacy, and we'll come to that talk around a ceasefire in a moment. But I found it quite interesting that he decided to speak about that chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan, because it was, after that where we never really saw Joe Biden's approval ratings recover.
No, I mean, it feels like a very long time ago now. But remember those images of Afghans running down the runway at Kabul airport as the C-17 transport planes belonging to the United States pulled away. People died as they fell from those planes, as they tried to clamber onto them. It was, many would see it as a debacle. It was a very, very chaotic withdrawal. It was a very difficult end to a very, very long war. President Biden has and continues to spin it positively, saying, look, there was never any easy way to end that war. But end it I did. That is how he sees it. It was an imperfect choice. It was an imperfect thing to do. There was never going to be an easy way to do it. But he did end it. Now, critics will say that the optics of that extraordinary withdrawal, such a quick withdrawal and such chaos, meant that America's adversaries around the world saw that, and they saw a weak America. And many make the argument that Putin watched what happened in Kabul nearly 4 years ago and thought that maybe now that then was the moment to make a move on Ukraine, and so he did. But from that, of course, Biden argues that Ukraine has held, that Putin has not been able to invade Ukraine and take the country as he would want to have done. So many ways to spin the past 4 years. Biden is certainly spinning it very positively.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, Donald Trump will, at every twist and turn, remind the American people that 13 or 14 servicemen died in Afghanistan as the Biden administration did that sort of chaotic withdrawal. And then, as you say, we've seen Ukraine, for example, and the challenges that he's faced in the Middle East. We just showed a clip there of Joe Biden talking about a ceasefire being on the brink. I mean, we've heard him say this multiple times over the course of the last 16 months. It does feel as though this time round, though, they are incredibly close. But I guess, big questions around whether the credit goes to Joe Biden, as he'd like to spin it, or, we are likely to see Donald Trump at inauguration say, I put pressure on parties on the ground, and I said that all hell would break loose if they didn't make this happen by the 20th of January.
Yeah, look, I think the truth on where the credit should lie is with both the outgoing administration and the incoming one. I mean, as commentators here in the US have been saying today, the madman theory of the methods of Donald Trump has certainly had an impact. I don't think there's any doubt about that. The fact that he is saying all hell will break loose if the hostages aren't released, if there isn't a deal by next week. What does he mean by that? No one actually knows, but everyone's minds are focused by those words because he is an unpredictable guy. Everyone accepts that. And so I think that's clearly had an impact. But what is also plainly true is that the work that the outgoing administration has done and continues to do, not least in Doha right now, has had a huge impact. But we've been here before so many times, and we'll see whether this time there is a breakthrough. President Biden dearly hopes there will be, because he would like to be able to add that to the legacy that he sees. But on Ukraine, he was really clear in that statement that he gave a little earlier on that he believes what he has done over the past few years in Ukraine has allowed Ukraine to defend itself, is to prevent Putin from taking the country. And listen to what he says here. He makes a point that you can't argue with about the fact that it was he, not Putin, who went to Kyiv.
When Putin invaded Ukraine, he thought he'd conquer Kyiv in a matter of days. But the truth is, since that war began, I'm the only one that stood in the center of Kyiv, not him. Putin never has.
I guess, Mark, a couple of things on the war in Ukraine. Firstly, you'll remember President Zelensky saying to Joe Biden, don't offer me a ride, don't offer an evacuation for me. I need your support. I need you to help me fight this war against the Russians. And the other thing on this is the idea of an end game. The Biden administration from the outset have said, that this war will only come to an end on Ukraine's terms, when Ukraine decides. And I guess, whether that is now the case or not. And Donald Trump has famously said he's going to end that war in 24 hours. He last week said it might take 6 months. So we still have a very long road ahead when it comes to Ukraine.
Yeah, we simply don't know how President Trump will end the war in 24 hours. He has said it so many times. He doesn't like to be seen to fail. And so what will happen? We know that Keith Kellogg, the former general in the U.S. Army, is his man on Ukraine and has been there, I think might even be there right now, to try and come up with some proposal to end the war. But to what extent will that embolden Putin? Will that allow him to regroup? Remember that Putin plays the long game. He could well be in office far beyond the 4 years that Donald Trump will be in office. So I think one way of looking at what will happen over the next 4 years, and who knows, but one way of looking at it is that the traits that we all know that make up Donald Trump, his unpredictability, the fact that he is a leader who likes to cut deals quickly, that he wants to be seen to win, they may well be traits that allow in the short term some quite remarkable things to happen. Maybe peace in Ukraine, maybe peace in the Middle East. He will then claim victory on all of these. But that is in the short term, in the 4 years that he's in office. As I say, Putin plays the long game. So you could argue that in the short term, we may see peace. But what will that allow Putin to do in the longer term? Beyond 4 years, emboldened, maybe, push west, as he says he would like to do, maybe.
Mark, thank you so much for all of your analysis, and we are going to continue our coverage. It's now a week until the inauguration of Donald Trump. We'll have special coverage here on Sky News. Now, this is The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Next up on the programme, 400 million people, 45 days. We'll take you to the world's largest religious festival.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back now to a celebration like no other, the world's largest religious gathering, the Mahakumbh Mela, which has begun in India. It takes place in Prayagraj in the northern state of Uttar Pradesh, at the meeting point of two rivers considered holy, the Ganges and the Yamuna. There, devotees bathe during an event that happens only once every 12 years. It's estimated that about 400 million Hindu pilgrims will take part over the next 45 days. Most will stay on a 10,000-acre site where more than 160,000 tents have been pitched, along with pop-up hospital staffed by thousands of doctors and nurses. On patrol are 50,000 police officers backed up by AI-enabled cameras and drones watching from above. Our India reporter Neville Lazarus is in Prayagraj.
Over the next 45 days, an estimate 400 million Hindu pilgrims are expected to converge here in Prayagraj on the banks of the holy river Ganga and Yamuna. The Mahakumbh Mela is one of the most sacred pilgrimage events and is celebrated once every 12 years. Here's my report.
It's like a sea of humanity. Hundreds of thousands have congregated for one of the most sacred pilgrim Hindu events, celebrated once every 12 years. For the next 6 weeks, an estimate 400 million devotees are expected here on the banks of the holy river Ganga and Yamuna. For millions of pilgrims, it serves a journey of self-realization, purification, and spiritual enlightenment. A ritualistic dip in the sacred river is a symbolic cleansing of the body and soul.
Sheer devotion has brought me here because I never expected, being a heart patient, I could walk so far and come. But I think God gave me strength to do it.
There are a lot of issues at home. My husband doesn't remain well, but still I left everybody and I came here, to take a dip in this. It's just undescribable, this experience.
Amongst the thousands that have travelled here are Carol and Mandy from Coventry.
I've come to get the blessing from Ganga, Saraswati, Yamuna, and I've come to get some Ganga Jal for my dear mother and my family and say prayers for them all and to have peace in my heart.
For me, this is more of a cultural trip than a spiritual trip. Obviously, I'm not a Hindu, but I'm into culture and I'm into spirituality, and this has been something that I've wanted to do for a very, very long time.
A pop-up tent city has sprung up over thousands of acres with hundreds of kilometers of temporary roads and bridges connecting the banks. More than 160,000 tents have been pitched. Electric supply, health services, drinking water and sanitation for such large numbers is a colossal task for the administration.
Over $800 million has been spent. The event is a showcase of the government under Prime Minister Modi. His muscular right-wing Hindu nationalism with a heady mix of religious identity has won him a third term in office.
The Mahakumbh finds its origins from ancient Hindu scriptures. Its importance and spectacle now revived by the government. It's a kaleidoscope of people from all walks of life, those who seek and those who bless, unite at the sacred grounds of the holy rivers.
For millions of Hindu pilgrims, it serves a journey of self-realization, purification, and spiritual enlightenment. A ritualistic dip in the sacred river is a symbolic cleansing of the body and soul and a connect to the divine. Pilgrims have come from all walks of life. Sadhus and ascetics leave their seclusion only to visit civilization at the Kumbh. Since early morning, when this 6-week event began, there have been a consistent stream of hundreds of thousands of devotees, making it one of the largest congregations in the world.
That was Neville Lazarus there. This is The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Next up on the programme, facing bulls, misogyny and discrimination, the story of France's only female professional bull jumper.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason.
President for a second time.
That reason being to save our country, he said.
A remarkable moment, isn't it?
Another chance, another 4 years. The question is, what does he do with those 4 years?
Watch the inauguration of Donald Trump as he becomes president for the second time.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
The full story, first on Sky News.
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
We'd been warned that we would meet people in the lowest moment of their lives.
Their story is one of fundamental American failure. Well, a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club, but I have to say there are more media here than there are supporters.
We love Trump!
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here, but the anger too. This is just the audience that Joe Biden wanted.
Is this the moment to reform gun laws?
You know, it's easy to go to politics.
But it's important. It's at the heart of the issue.
For all the talk of a toned-down, humbled Trump, yes, maybe there was just a little less rhetoric, a little less divisiveness, but in the end it was the same rhythm, the same speech, the same man.
All them people that died in Russia and Ukraine, they'd still be alive today if Donald Trump was the president.
If it was my wish, have a businessman that's strong like Trump, but maybe just doesn't say as much, you know?
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What we've been allowed to see over here is a humanitarian corridor. Free wherever you get your news.
A young American medical student is making remarkable things happen.
I've seen a lot of difficult things, and honestly, it breaks my heart. These children don't deserve that.
I don't think there's a single Arab I know who isn't seriously disturbed by what's going on.
And so they gathered for this wonder of nature.
I'm very excited right now.
This is an extraordinary moment beyond anything I could have expected. Sky News, get the full story first.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Welcome back to the programme. Now, you've likely heard of bullfighting, but how about bull jumping? It's an ancient French form of the sport with very old-fashioned traditions about the gender of competitors. The short film, Marion, tells the story of France's only female bull jumper and her battle against misogyny and discrimination. Have a look.
Allez, reste. Allez!
Well, we have the two co-directors with us tonight. Here in the studio is Joe Wayland, and joining us from St Lucia is Finn Constantine. Thank you both for joining us here on the programme. Joe, I'll start with you because you're here with me. I mean, this is quite a fascinating story. As I said, we've heard of bullfighting, but never bull jumping. And how did this sort of land on your laps?
It was very interesting. So Finn, my co-director, he sent me a documentary that was about this sport. And immediately we were both fascinated about it. So we dug deeper and we found an article that was basically written about Caroline, who is eventually the lead of the film, sort of talking about how she's the only French female bullfighter and her journey. So from there, we were just absolutely fascinated with her story, and we went out and wrote a script based on 2 articles we'd read about her, moved to France, and then actually turned up at her farm with the script in hand and said, we would love you to play the lead in this story. So it's sort of a bit of a wild process of how it happened.
Yeah, and Finn, I guess what's fascinating about this is Marion is she's a fictional character, but actually in many ways it is based on Caroline.
Yeah, I mean, the film is Caroline's story. That's really what we wanted to try and capture and bring to life through this 13-minute film. We wanted to be true to her experience, and obviously it's fictionalized in many senses, but really for us, the process was about shining a light on this and shining a light on her and this amazing feat of endurance and trailblazing character.
And also, not just these issues, but the misogyny, the discrimination, the tradition behind this.
Yeah, totally. I mean, for us, this is a world that we didn't know about, being in London and being English. And once we got into the world and we spoke with Caroline, the sport is historic and has been running since 1823. And Caroline really is this amazing figure who has broken down the status quo and the way that things are done in France. And, for us, it was just about trying to shine a light on that and lift it up.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, as you say, an ancient sport, and she is the only female bull jumper. Did you think anything about this sport could potentially change and it could come into the modern era?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, with Caroline's story, she's inspired so many younger girls in the region. The end of the film, we filmed a real bull jumping performance. And it was amazing to see after the show all these young ladies coming up to her and taking photos. So she really does exist as sort of this quite inspiring figure in the region. So with our film, we really wanted to sort of dig deep into that and show her story on the big screen for a wider audience.
And what kind of reaction have you had to it?
It's been amazing, really. A lot of people hadn't heard of the sport or the world, and a lot of people think it's bullfighting, which is sort of, not what we were getting at. It's a different sport. And it was really fascinating to see how people have sort of responded and got in touch and said how the story has affected them on a human level, not just about the sport, but about her journey to sort of resilience and courage.
And Joe, I have about a minute to go, but was there something that you discovered from this, Finn, that really surprised you?
I think, the thing that really surprised me, it didn't surprise me in many senses, but to be around Caroline, to be around a character that really has, she's had to fight in order to sort of dance with death in many ways. To be around that and to be around that courage is really awe-inspiring. And being able to engross ourselves in that story for, I think it's probably been 3 years now, has been really amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, Joe, briefly, it's long-listed for a BAFTA. You are getting recognition from the industry. You're hoping, obviously, that it is shortlisted. And then you're also looking at perhaps turning this into a full-length sort of feature film as well.
Yeah, that's the goal. We're in development now, sort of lots of conversations and looking at how we're sort of going to expand this story, because the response has been so positive and, I think there's so much more to sort of unveil there. But the BAFTA long list has been such an amazing moment for Finn and I, and we just, we're so excited to see how it develops.
Amazing. Well, congratulations, Joe and Finn, and thank you so much for joining us here on the programme. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. The news at 10 is up next with the latest on the California fires. And as you've been watching on the programme, our teams are on the ground covering all the developments. Good night for now.